Some stories survive because they were carefully recorded. Others survive because nobody could ever explain them. The story of Rome's lost legion belongs to the second kind. For centuries, historians have argued over what really happened to thousands of Roman soldiers who marched away under the banner of the empire and seemingly vanished from history. They left behind almost no eyewitness accounts, no final battlefield, and no clear ending. Only fragments, theories, and whispers remained. Did they die in a forgotten battle? Were they captured and forced to serve another empire? Did they travel farther east than anyone ever imagined? Or did they simply disappear into history, their identity slowly erased over generations? The truth is that nobody knows for certain, and perhaps that's exactly why people are still searching for them more than 2,000 years later. The Roman Empire built its power on discipline. Every legion was a machine. Thousands of soldiers trained to move together, fight together, and die together if necessary. A legion wasn't just an army, it was a symbol of Rome itself. When one marched across the landscape, people knew exactly what it represented: order, power, control. Rome counted everything: taxes, roads, cities, supplies, soldiers. An empire built on organization wasn't supposed to lose an entire legion, yet history suggests that it did. The mystery begins in the 1st century BC. Rome had become the dominant power around the Mediterranean, but powerful enemies still surrounded its borders. One of the strongest was the Parthian Empire. Unlike Rome's heavily armored infantry, the Parthians relied on speed. Their horse archers could strike from incredible distances before disappearing across the open plains. Their armored cavalry charged like moving walls of steel. The two civilizations were destined to collide, and eventually they did. In 53 BC, Marcus Licinius Crassus made a decision that would change history. Crassus wasn't just another Roman politician. He was one of the richest men who had ever lived. Together with Julius Caesar and Pompey, he formed the famous First Triumvirate. But wealth wasn't enough. Caesar had military glory. Pompey had military glory. Crassus wanted the same. He believed conquering Parthia would secure his place among Rome's greatest heroes. Many warned him not to go. The campaign was risky, the terrain was unfamiliar, the enemy fought in ways Roman legions had rarely experienced. Crassus ignored every warning. Confident victories often make generals feel invincible. History has shown that confidence can become dangerous. Crassus crossed the Euphrates River with around 7 legions and thousands of supporting troops. Some estimates place his army at more than 40,000 men. It looked unstoppable. Roman soldiers wore heavy armor. They carried large rectangular shields, short swords, throwing spears. Everything had been perfected over centuries of warfare. Against ordinary enemies, these tactics were devastating. But the Parthians refused to fight like ordinary enemies. Instead of meeting Rome head-on, they surrounded them. Horse archers rode in circles around the Roman formations. Arrows rained down hour after hour. Whenever Roman cavalry attempted to chase them, the Parthians simply disappeared into the desert before turning around and attacking again. But Romans couldn't force a close battle. Their greatest strength became useless. Then came the famous maneuver historians now call the Parthian shot. Even while riding away, Parthian archers twisted in their saddles and fired arrows backward with incredible accuracy. There was no escape. Every direction brought another volley. The battle reached its climax near the town of Carrhae. Roman discipline began to crack. Soldiers were exhausted. Water was scarce. The relentless attack never stopped. Crassus attempted negotiations. Instead, confusion followed. Violence erupted. The Roman commander was killed. Without leadership, the army collapsed. Thousands died. Thousands more surrendered. Rome had suffered one of the greatest defeats in its history. But this wasn't where the mystery truly began. It started afterward. Ancient writers mentioned something remarkable: Around 10,000 Roman prisoners had been captured alive. Instead of executing them, the Parthians reportedly sent them east, far east, away from the Roman frontier. And then, history becomes strangely quiet. Most ancient records simply stop following them. The soldiers vanished from Roman history. No official rescue mission ever recovered them. No detailed record describes where they ultimately settled. No surviving Roman officer returned with a complete account. It's as if thousands of trained soldiers simply walked off the map. For centuries, historians assumed they eventually died in captivity. It seemed like the simplest explanation. But then another theory appeared, and it was far stranger. During the 20th century, researchers studying ancient Chinese records noticed something unusual. One historical account described a mysterious group of foreign warriors fighting in Central Asia. These soldiers reportedly fought in a formation unlike anything Chinese armies had seen. Some translations described a defensive pattern resembling overlapping shields. To some historians, it sounded strangely familiar. The Roman testudo, the famous turtle formation. Roman soldiers could lock their shields together above and around themselves, creating a moving fortress. It was one of the most recognizable tactics in the ancient world. Could these mysterious warriors have been the missing prisoners from Carrhae? The idea captured imaginations almost immediately. If the Roman prisoners had been moved east by the Parthians, if they later escaped, if they entered Central Asia, could they eventually have reached Western China? It sounded almost impossible, yet impossible stories sometimes become history. The speculation became even more intriguing because of one small village. In northwestern China lies a settlement called Liqian. For decades, stories circulated that some residents possessed unusual physical features: lighter eyes, higher noses, different facial characteristics than surrounding populations. Local legends even claimed their ancestors came from a distant Western empire. Newspapers quickly embraced the idea. The lost Roman legion found. It sounded like the perfect historical discovery. Researchers visited the village. Genetic studies were conducted. Archaeologists searched for Roman artifacts. Historians compared ancient texts. The results, however, proved far more complicated. No definitive DNA evidence connected the villagers directly to ancient Romans. No Roman weapons were uncovered that settled the debate. No inscription proudly announcing "We came from Rome" was ever found. The mystery remained exactly that, a mystery. Other scholars offered different possibilities. Perhaps the prisoners never reached China at all. Perhaps they spent the rest of their lives guarding distant Parthian borders. Perhaps they married local families, raised children, learned new languages, forgot the empire that had once shaped every part of their lives. Imagine being one of those soldiers. One day you're marching beneath Roman standards. The next, you're thousands of miles away, in a land you've never heard of. The people don't speak your language, the food is unfamiliar, your commanders are gone. Your empire cannot reach you. Eventually, survival becomes more important than identity. Years become decades. Children are born. Grandchildren grow up. At some point, you stop being a Roman soldier. You become something else. History often remembers kings and generals. Ordinary soldiers rarely receive that privilege. There are still historians who reject the entire China theory. They argue that the shield formations described in Chinese texts could easily refer to another army. Military tactics often evolve independently. Similar formations do not necessarily prove shared origins. Others point out that ancient historical records frequently exaggerate or misunderstand foreign armies. Translation errors over 2,000 years only add more uncertainty. Every piece of evidence seems to create another question instead of providing an answer. That's what makes the mystery so enduring. It refuses to end neatly. The Roman Empire eventually recovered from Carrhae. Years later, Rome regained some of its lost military standards through diplomacy. Those standards represented honor, Recovering them mattered deeply, but standards are not soldiers. The missing prisoners were never truly brought home. Their names disappeared. Their stories faded. Their descendants, if they had any, blended into new civilizations. Time erased what war had begun. Perhaps that's the saddest part of the mystery. Not that they vanished, but that they may have survived. History usually celebrates heroic last stands, yet survival can be stranger than death. Imagine carrying memories of Rome for the rest of your life while knowing you'd never see it again. The streets, the language, the family you left behind. Everything becoming more distant with every passing year. Until one day, you realize your grandchildren have never even heard the word Rome. Today, archaeologists continue searching. Ancient battlefields are re-examined. Forgotten settlements are excavated. New technologies scan landscapes hidden beneath deserts and fields. Every discovery has the potential to rewrite what we know. Maybe one inscription still waits beneath the earth. Maybe one forgotten document remains hidden inside an ancient archive. Or perhaps the truth disappeared forever with the last survivor. Some mysteries end with discoveries. Others become part of history itself. The lost Roman legion stands somewhere between those two worlds. Thousands of soldiers marched into one of history's greatest empires. They fought for glory, they fought for Rome. Then they vanished into silence. Whether they died beneath foreign skies, built new lives in distant lands, or became the ancestors of people who no longer remembered their origins, one fact remains unchanged. An empire that recorded almost everything could never fully explain what happened to its own men. And after more than 2,000 years, the footsteps of the lost legion still echo across deserts, mountains, and forgotten roads, waiting for someone to finally discover where their journey truly ended.